What's up? How you doing? Here we are, Saturday morning. Beautiful day today. Gonna have some tea again. I had this last night, and it was my first time having it, but it's delicious. Downton Abbey, I guess that's how you say it. And it's Daisy and Mrs. Patmore's tea. The Republic of Tea makes it, and I guess they're maids or something. I don't watch this show. It's a little stuffy, so I have no idea. I don't know if you can see that. So the smell off of this is awesome. Anyway, we're gonna make that in a little bit. Got a Timex watch here. All the watches I own, all of them are Timex. Now there are better watches, maybe, but I like Timex. In the old days, there was a slogan. They had a commercial: Timex takes a licking and keeps on ticking. And they had a commercial. One of the commercials was they put a Timex watch inside a tire, and then they drove the car for I forget how many thousands of miles. Then they took the tire off and removed the watch. It was a Timex, and it still worked. I mean, they had to wind it up again, but it still worked. Kept good time, and I was always impressed with those commercials. And they're cheap watches, I mean, price-wise. So I bought my first Timex watch 35 years ago, and that specific one cost me, I think it was about 20 bucks back then, and I beat the crap out of it. I can't tell you how many weird situations I was in with that watch, and the environment, in the mud, all kind of places, hot, cold, and to this day it keeps good time. Still works, no problem with it. So you know, what more of a test do you need? 20 bucks back then. So I get these Timex watches. This one is a more recent one. It was an Expedition. It has a tough canvas band on it, which I prefer leather, but you know, this one's very tough. Good for the wet and cold environments. So I highly recommend Timex. Takes a licking and keeps on ticking. So anyway, we're gonna get this going here. Plus I have my knife here, nice and sharp. Good for cutting onions, steak, things like that. So I already have water in here. I'm just going to attach it onto the propane. There's a little thing under here. Gives a little spark. That's bamboo handle. They had you know, the rest of it's cast iron, but they had a metal handle. But what I find with metal, first of all, it didn't feel as comfortable as this one, but metal gets very hot. You know, I know it's up here, but the heat, you know, comes up here and makes the handle very hot when it's metal. I have a metal one inside, and I've used it. It's wonderful. But this one here is always cool to the touch. What else we have here? We have these wooden puzzle balls, which I bought one when I was a kid. I was 10 years old, bought the barrel one. And I don't know, I don't think it came with instructions, that one. And we had people at my house trying to figure it out, you know, put together, and nobody really put it together. One guy came close, very close. So once you read the instructions on how to make these, they're very simple. But prior to that, it's very difficult. you can still figure it out, but it takes a lot of tries. So anyway, we're gonna have some of this nice tea, and I wish they had a smelling app at home. You'd really find this tea enjoyable. So Saturday morning. In the old days, I would be inside right now, in my room, windows open, watching Saturday morning cartoons. I had 2 thick pillows that I would pretend to be flying over my bed with. I would leap, and I felt like I was suspended in the air for like a minute, but I wasn't. And then I'd flip channels. I had all the scheduling in my mind, and the very end, the very last one before I would go out and play, was watching Fat Albert. Fat Albert, I loved. Well, I was a city kid, so the Fat Albert cartoon was very, familiar to me, because that's the lifestyle I led, hanging around in places like that, playing with friends from different neighborhoods. So Isabella right here right now.
Hi.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have tea together. Smell that. Tell me what you think of that smell.
Okay. Smells good.
That's a good smell.
I don't know how to say it though. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah. So anyway, back in the 70s, kids had a lot of freedom, and I'm a product of that time. And I used to roam around all over the place.
Oh, it's plum.
Yes, my parents had no idea. My parents probably thought it was somewhere locally, maybe in the basement, but I wasn't. I was far away from the house. And usually, a hangout of mine was the railroad tracks. And to this day, I am fond of railroad tracks and trains, especially the freight trains. But I even like the light rail, local transportation. I spent a lot of time in my youth riding the trains, a lot of time. And when I say a lot, I'm not exaggerating. I spent so much time that sometimes I would plan Saturdays around riding the trains.
You need to get more. They say they have more.
Yes. Well, we could buy some.
It says discover more than 300.
So I would get up in the morning, some Saturdays, this was like after my cartoon days, and I would get up and plan, well, I would do it on Friday. That way I was euphoric about Saturday coming. I would do it on a Friday, plan the whole day out, and most of it was around riding trains and then getting off and going to the arcade. That was another big thing in those days, going to the arcade and playing Defender. I played other games too, but Defender, that was number 1 on my list. But I also love pinball. And this has a bamboo handle thing, that way you can pick it up. The other one, when the water gets hot, the metal thing on top is really hot. Look at this, I can hold it no problem. So that's how it was in those days. A lot of fun. Like right now, if I was in the 6th grade, I would be probably on a bus somewhere far away from home. And of course the train system. I was in the subway most of the day on Saturday when I went out like that. They don't have arcades like they used to anymore. I mean, they have a few here and there, but like we go to Santa Monica, there's one there, and then there's another one where the Karate Kid was filmed. That whole thing with Ali playing that hockey game, that's still there. Although I went there about a decade ago, maybe 12 years ago, and I was not impressed with it at all. A lot smaller when you get there in person. It's a lot smaller and a little bit dingy.
Maybe it got better.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to go again, but they do have some go-kart section next to it, which I'm also a big fan of go-karts. Even to this day, I'd like to get a full-size go-kart that fits me, souped up, But when I was a kid, I couldn't wait to go and drive a go-kart. I used to write letters to go-kart companies to send me information in hopes that somehow I could generate the money and buy one, because I thought back then you could drive one on the streets, go to the mall, park in a parking space, do a little shopping, back to school shopping, get back in your go-kart. That's what I thought you could do. I didn't realize that was illegal. So, it wouldn't have been a thing I could do. I could probably drive it in the backyard on my parents' grassy lawn, and then You know, they'd say, who tore up the grass like that? And I would say, rodents. Anyway, it's steaming, so I'm going to shut it off and put the bags in. I don't like boiling it.
What about sugar?
I have, well, I'll get it if I don't have it.
You don't?
So that's off. I don't like boiling it with the tea in there because I find that it overwhelms the, you know, the bitterness, and it's just too much.
Can
but
I get sugar?
Go ahead. I do steep it for at least 5 minutes. Could go much more than that, but you know, 5 minutes is plenty of time. Put a couple of bags in here. There's 2 of us. And we let it sit there for a minute, 5. This product here, very handy. You get a little propane tank, but I have an adapter that fits a big one too. I could take a, you know, one of those you get at Lowe's, and I could cook a feast. I could cook a meal for like 50 people if I had to. But this thing right here, very convenient. Very convenient. All right, I'm going to pause for a minute here and fix everything up. All right, here we are, 5 minutes older, and the tea has been sitting there for, like I said, 5 minutes. And we're going to try it now. And this cup, both of them, these are the perfect size cups for tea, because they have the right temperature throughout. Where if you put a paint can size teacup, then by the time you get to the bottom, it's like drinking iced tea. It's hot. Yeah. So that's why the British people use these cute little things here, and they stir like this. But I find that, you know, this size is more enjoyable. You could have 5 of these, but if you put it in a big thing like that and sip it, it takes away something from the flavor and the experience. We go to Disneyland. I don't think it's there anymore, but it's gone. Well, there used to be a place, a tea place, and they would bring you, you know, little kettles like this and little snacks, cookies, little sandwiches, and tea, different teas. They had options: white tea, green tea, black tea, different jasmine, all kind of things. And then they would bring you these cute little cups, and you would sip away. But they didn't bring you a big thing like this until you fill it up and just sip. You know, I go to Starbucks, I get coffee, but when I get the tea there, they give you a big thing like that, and it's not as enjoyable. You want to, but you can't. What are you going to do there? You can't get a little thing like that and keep refilling it.
Yeah, you can. So hot.
It's hot, but it's very flavorful. Yeah, I enjoy tea a lot. I've said this before, but I have to say it again since I'm here. In my family, you know, they would drink tea when they were sick only. If you mentioned to them something like you're making tea and you'd say, you want some tea? Immediately their response was, I'm not sick. Go to Britain and England, this is the main thing they have. I mean Britain and England. If you go to England and India, this is what they drink all the time.
What if I asked them to give me coffee?
Well, they probably have that.
No, like, because their main thing's tea, like coffee's the opposite.
Well, maybe you put them out a little bit, but eventually they'd find some Maxwell House. Although I bought Ethiopian coffee, and that is really good. Although, you know, I'm kind of biased on that because I'm a fan of Ethiopia, and I've always been a fan of their coffee. So you'd have to blindfold me and do a double blind placebo thing on me.
Yeah. What's that?
That's where you test something, but neither the person being tested nor the administrator knows which one is the real thing. So it could be one, you know, one could be the real thing. The other one would be Sanka brand. And you'd have to figure out which one is the good one. But if you already know ahead of time that that's Sanka brand, you may say, yeah, that's not that tasty. Sanka brand was decaffeinated. But that's really good tea. And like I said, for some reason, drinking it out of a cup this size makes it taste even better. I think they have like a vanilla something in there. There's a bit of a vanilla flavor.
They do. Where'd it go? Yeah, it says here. Look. It says, I'm married with the virtuous flavor vanilla.
Oh, so that's what's in there. Yeah, when I hear that sound, it reminds me of a situation when I was 10 years old. We were messing around some cottages, and this was like the end of August. School was getting ready to start, last few days of August, and they had these propane tanks, and a friend of mine and myself, I don't know what we did. We tampered with the tank, and it started blowing out propane.
Do you have more?
Yes.
Give me more.
A lot of propane, and so we ended up calling the fire department before anything happened, and they came down. The ambulance came down first, and they had the strobe light on, and me and my friend were doing like dancing in front. It was like, you know, in stop motion photography. That's what it looked like. And then I asked the ambulance driver, how fast do you guys go when you have the alarm, when you have the siren going? And he goes, oh, we don't. We go, you know, generally around the speed limit, he goes, but it looks fast because everybody else has stopped. But I think they go a little faster than that. Unless they see what's burning and it's not that, you know, that big of a deal. Like some abandoned, you know, dump somewhere. But yeah, so they came there. They didn't touch it. The people that the fire department ambulance drivers, they just sat there waiting. But then the big thing came, the big engine, and then they came on. They did something. They shut the whole thing down.
Did you get in trouble?
No.
Do you think you would have gotten in trouble if you were older?
If we were older, we probably would have left. No, we would have called and then left. But yeah, when you're little, they let you slide on a lot of things like that. Although we didn't do anything. I think we tampered with one of the switches, and then all of a sudden, all that propane was leaking out the top, so we couldn't shut it off. So we called up 911.
It does weird things. Look, you see the streaks?
Yes,
It does
see.
stuff.
And in that area, that was a hidden area. You had to cut through a forest full of trails to get to these cottages. And in another location on the left side, maybe, I don't know, 500 feet away, was a dude. They called him Duke. He was a guy who owned a really, really expensive Harley Davidson. Played the music really loud on that Harley Davidson when he would go by. And he had two vicious Dobermans that were locked up in a huge cage. And we would ride our bikes through that area, and those dogs would go nuts. They had muzzles on and everything. And that guy, Duke, there was a little bar maybe 2 miles from his house, and I don't know if he drank, if he went there for drinking, because he would be all wobbly on that bike, run somebody over. But it was also like a restaurant thing, and his bike was always parked in the front. That was his favorite hangout. So if he's alive today, I would say he would be like 90. Because he didn't look, you know, young back then either.
probably was young. He just didn't look like it.
Yeah, he looked a little bit older, but he dressed up like he was an ex Hell's Angels guy. And this house was, I liked the location. It was in the middle. Like, he had no neighbors, and like, you had to go a few hundred feet to find the next house, which is quite a distance because in most places houses are next door. But he had a big, maybe 20 by 20 cage with these two Dobermans, and inside the cage the Dobermans had muzzles on. Maybe they were biting each other. So very, very good tea.
Oh, did I get a book by? I got a book.
I had a sample of tea years ago. Went to Hawaii and stayed at this really nice hotel. It was not Motel 6 or anything. It was a really nice one, and they had their own blend of tea. And we ended up buying a whole batch, which it was tea, but it also had a little bit like a flowery taste. And drank a lot of that there, a lot of tea, a lot of Kona coffee. Every corner in Hawaii had Kona coffee, 100% Kona, not the stuff we get here that's like 10%. I mean, they have the 100% here, but it's really expensive. So that's that.